We tend to think of reality as this solid, persistent thing, right? It's just there. But what if it isn't? What if everything you experience is actually being built brand new from one moment to the next? Today, we're going to explore a really radical idea, a mechanical breakdown of how our mind constructs the world, spark by spark. And it might just change how you see everything, including yourself.
So let's just kick things off with this bombshell of a quote from our source material. Wow. A thought is an illusion. A thought is a lie. It just cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's suggesting that the very things we use to make sense of the world, our thoughts, are actually deceptions. And if our thoughts are lies, what does that mean for the world they're constantly describing to us?
Okay, so if what our senses are telling us is basically an illusion, then what in the world are we actually experiencing? From one tiny moment to the next? That's the central mystery we're going to try to unravel. Let's really dig into the mechanics of it, step by step.
And just so you know where all this is coming from, everything we're about to get into is based on the teachings found in this text. It presents this incredibly detailed, almost like an engineer's eye view of how the mind works, and we're just going to walk through its core ideas together.
All right, so how does this whole illusion even get started? Well, it all begins with the tiniest possible piece of the puzzle, the fundamental building block of mental creation. To see the big picture, we've got to start really, really small.
So the first piece is something the text calls an aramuna. Now, super important to get this. An aramuna isn't a thing yet. It's just raw data. It's a signal hitting one of your six senses, a pattern of light on your retina, a vibration in your ear, a pressure on your skin. It's pure, uninterpreted information.
And then, boom, the next step happens. We get a siddha, which is basically a thought. This is the exact moment our mind grabs that raw signal, that aramuna, and instantly slaps a label on it. That pattern of light is no longer just a pattern, it's now a cup. That vibration is now the sound of a car. A thing has been born.
But here's where it gets really wild. A siddha, a thought, isn't some solid object floating around in your head. The text describes it as a spark, a momentary, instantaneous flash. It happens when two bits of data come together, rupa, which is a form or a color, and nama, which is its name or sound. They fuse for an instant, create a spark, and then they're gone. Okay, hold on. If our entire reality is built on these teeny tiny sparks that just flash in and out of existence, how do we end up with the solid, stable world we think we live in? This is where the real magic trick happens. It's pretty fascinating.
The process is called chitta aropana, and you can think of it like an old-school flip book. Each page is a single spark, a single sita. But when you flip through trillions of these pages at an unbelievable speed, you don't see the individual pages anymore, do you? You see a smooth, continuous movie. That's what your mind is doing.
And the source gives us this absolutely perfect analogy. It says, our mind is just like a television screen. You think you're watching real people and real places inside the box, but you're not. It's just a plastic board with rapidly changing lights creating an image. What we perceive as the world is just like that image on the screen.
So here's the takeaway, and it is a big one. What we think of as the outside world isn't really being perceived fresh in each moment. According to this model, it's just our own internal database, all the shapes and sounds and labels we learned as kids, playing back on a super fast loop. We're just re-experiencing our own data.
All right, so we've seen how the illusion gets built, how the trick works. The next obvious question is, can you see through it? Is it possible to actually peek behind the curtain and see the sparks for what they are?
Well, the text says yes, and the key is developing a very special kind of wisdom called yathabhuta gnaya. Now, this isn't just about thinking, oh yeah, it's all an illusion. It's about the direct, in-the-moment ability to see the sparks as they happen. It's experiencing the cup in front of you not as a solid thing, but as that fleeting mental spark, and realizing even that spark is empty. And you can really see the contrast between these two states of mind right here. On one side, you've got ignorance. That's our default mode, right? We're totally fooled by the show. We believe there's a me in here and a world out there, and that leads to all sorts of desire and suffering. But then you have awareness. With that special wisdom, the whole inside-outside division just collapses. The thoughts lose their power.
And get this, reaching this state isn't about gritting your teeth and trying to force your thoughts to stop. It's about seeing the illusion so clearly, so profoundly, that the sparks just kind of lose their fuel. They stop being generated in that moment. And that is what's called mohotha avadiya, literally awakening to the moment. It's a state of pure direct awareness. Okay, so we've deconstructed the outside world. Now we're going to take it one giant step further, and maybe this is the most mind-bending part of all. If the world out there is a projection, an illusion, what does that mean for the I who seems to be watching it all?
So, the same logic gets turned inward. If a book and a table are just thoughts, just sparks, then what about your own body? The perception of my hand, the feeling of my feet on the floor, isn't that also constructed from the very same sparks? The fusion of a shape and a name?
And this source uses this really powerful thought experiment to drive the point home. Just think about it. If you lost an arm, are you still you? Of course, right? A part of your physical body is gone, but that core sense of me is still there, intact.
And then it just pushes that logic to its absolute extreme. Let's say you amputate both your arms, both your legs. Where's you then? By stripping away all the parts, you're forced to confront what this self thing actually is. Clearly, it's not just the sum of your body parts.
And that brings us right to this stunning, unavoidable conclusion. The feeling of I, that sense of being a separate self, the observer in your head, that experience of me, is created by the exact same process as the thought of a book. It is just another setha, just another momentary spark.
Whoa, okay, so it begs the next question, doesn't it? If the self is just another thought, and we've already seen that a thought is just an empty, fleeting spark, then is there any actual life in a thought? Is there a real, solid, living thing inside one of those sparks? Was there ever?
And this leads us to the ultimate realization described in the text, and it's summed up by this one phrase, Nisato Nashivo Shunyo. It translates to no being, no life, nothingness. It's pointing to this state of shunyo, or emptiness, where the entire constructed show, both the outer world and the inner self, is seen as being fundamentally empty of any solid, independent existence.
So that leaves us with one final, huge question to chew on. We've gone through the whole mechanical process, from the raw signal to the spark, to the illusory world and the illusory self. So the question is this: if you truly and completely saw through this entire process, what would be left? What remains when you finally stop believing the story the mind is telling?